She smiled warmly and said, "Welcome aboard, Mr. and Mrs." The man standing beside his mistress froze. Not because he had forgotten something. Not because he had seen a familiar face. But because the flight attendant welcoming them onto the aircraft wasn't just another member of the cabin crew. She was his wife. Jordan Mercer had built his entire life around one remarkable talent, making people believe he was exactly who they wanted him to be. He drove a charcoal-gray Tesla through downtown Atlanta with the quiet confidence of a man who believed he belonged at the top. His consulting firm generated millions in revenue, his tailored suits fit him perfectly, and his calm smile earned trust before he even spoke. People described him as polished, dependable, and successful. His wife, Priya, simply called him home. For 6 years, Priya Mercer had worked as a domestic flight attendant. She woke before sunrise more often than not, pressed her uniform with care, greeted every passenger with genuine kindness, and still managed to have dinner waiting whenever Jordan returned from work. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. She never demanded attention. But she noticed everything. That was the one thing Jordan kept underestimating. Tuesday morning began like any other. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen windows as Priya zipped her flight bag and checked her schedule one last time. Jordan walked in, already dressed for work. His tie was perfectly straight, and his eyes were fixed on the phone in his hand. "Leaving early again?" Priya asked with a gentle smile. "Meetings," Jordan replied as he poured himself a cup of coffee without looking up. "You've had a lot of those lately. That's what clients pay for." He leaned over and kissed her lightly on the cheek. It wasn't affectionate. It was automatic. Like signing a document or sealing an envelope. Then he grabbed his keys and walked out the door. Priya watched him leave without saying another word. She had questions, but she had long ago learned that asking them rarely changed anything. What Jordan didn't tell her, what he hadn't told anyone, was that he had already booked 2 first-class tickets to Cancun. This wasn't a business trip. It was a vacation with another woman. Her name was Kayla Brandt. At 26, Kayla had the kind of confidence that turned heads wherever she went. She was ambitious, fearless, and completely uninterested in living an ordinary life. Her perfume cost more than some people's monthly rent, her laugh filled every room she entered, and she never apologized for taking up space. She had met Jordan at an exclusive rooftop networking event 8 months ago. A casual conversation had become lunch, lunch had become late-night messages, and those messages had slowly become an affair neither of them ever intended to stop. Now they sat together in a quiet corner cafe. Kayla scrolled through photos of luxury resorts before turning her phone toward him. "What about this one?" she asked, showing an infinity pool overlooking crystal blue water. Jordan smiled. "Already booked. Private villa. Oceanfront. 6 days." She leaned across the table and kissed him quickly. "I knew you wouldn't disappoint me." "And Priya still thinks you're attending a conference in Houston?" Jordan didn't hesitate. "She won't question it." "You're that confident?" He shrugged casually. "She never checks." He reached into his briefcase and slid 2 boarding passes across the table. "Departure, Friday. First class." Neither of them spent even a second thinking about what would happen if someone discovered the truth. Some people mistake luck for invincibility. Jordan was one of them. Across the city, Priya's week was about to change. Wednesday afternoon, her supervisor asked her to step into the office. "We've decided to move you to our international team," her supervisor said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Your passenger reviews are consistently among the highest in the company. We'd like you to lead first-class service on our international routes." For a moment, Priya couldn't speak. 6 years of early mornings, delayed flights, and missed holidays, someone had finally noticed. International assignments meant higher pay, better hotels, and longer layovers. She carefully opened the folder. Her first assignment was scheduled for this Friday. Destination, Cancun. A quiet laugh escaped her lips before she could stop it. Something funny? Her supervisor asked. No, Priya smiled softly. It's just, my husband mentioned he might be traveling this weekend too. What a coincidence. As she closed the folder, Priya reached for her phone. For a second, she thought about calling Jordan to surprise him. But something inside her hesitated. A small, quiet voice whispering, "Wait." She slipped the phone back into her purse. I'll tell him when I get home, she thought. She had no idea she would see him much sooner than that. Friday arrived. Hartsfield-Jackson Airport buzzed with travelers. Jordan and Kayla looked like they belonged on the cover of a luxury travel magazine. Jordan wore dark jeans and a fitted gray jacket. Kayla wore a cream-colored linen outfit with oversized sunglasses. I love airports, Kayla said as she slipped her arm through Jordan's. Why? Because nobody knows your story. For a few hours, you get to become whoever you want. The words should have sounded like a warning. Inside the first-class lounge, they ordered drinks, feeling completely in control. Jordan's phone remained silent. No missed calls. No questions. 20 minutes later, the boarding announcement echoed, Flight 614 to Cancun is now boarding. Kayla stood immediately. Vacation starts now. They stepped into the quiet jet bridge. Jordan could already picture the ocean waiting for them. Then, he stepped through the aircraft door, and his entire world stopped. Standing just inside the entrance was Priya. Hair neatly pinned, posture flawless, smile warm and welcoming. Jordan stopped so suddenly that the passenger behind him accidentally bumped into his shoulder. Beside him, Kayla frowned. What happened? He couldn't answer. She followed his gaze toward the door, and her eyes widened. Oh my God, is that your wife? His throat felt dry. Yes. I thought you said she only worked domestic flights. So did I. The boarding line continued moving. 10 feet away. 6. 4. Jordan's heartbeat pounded against his ribs. Priya looked up. Their eyes met instantly. She saw him. She saw Kayla standing beside him. She noticed the matching luggage, the boarding passes, and the way Kayla's hand rested comfortably around his arm. She understood everything immediately. Jordan waited for anger, for tears, for shock. Instead, Priya smiled the same calm, professional smile she gave every passenger. Welcome aboard, she said warmly. Mr. and Mrs. Your seats are 3A and 3B. Please enjoy your flight. Jordan felt every ounce of color drain from his face. Without saying a single word, he walked past his own wife. The first-class cabin was designed to make every passenger feel untouchable. But for Jordan, it felt more like a courtroom. He lowered himself into seat 3A. Beside him, Kayla fastened her seatbelt slowly. She recognized us, she whispered. And she didn't say anything. She's working, Jordan replied quietly. She won't make a scene. Kayla shook her head. I'm not worried about a scene. I'm worried about what a woman like her does when she chooses not to make one. Soon, the engines roared to life. The runway disappeared beneath them. There was no turning back. Nearly 30 minutes into the flight, Priya entered the cabin pushing the service cart. She greeted every passenger with genuine warmth, moving with quiet confidence. Jordan watched her from behind his entertainment screen. He had never truly watched her work before. Now he understood why she'd been promoted. She was exceptional at it. Kayla leaned closer. She's coming. Priya stopped beside their row and looked directly at Jordan. Good evening. What may I get you to drink? Just water, Jordan's voice came out thin. She poured the water carefully. Then she turned toward Kayla with the exact same professional smile. And for you, ma'am? Champagne, please. Priya filled the glass. Then, before moving away, she leaned just slightly toward Jordan. Only he could hear her soft voice. I hope your conference in Houston goes well. Then she straightened and continued serving the next row as if nothing had happened. Jordan felt his stomach tighten. Kayla stared at him. What did she say? She mentioned Houston. Kayla slowly leaned back. Oh, she knows. Dinner service was an elegant affair, but Jordan barely touched his food, and Kayla picked at hers without appetite. Every few minutes, Priya walked through the cabin, laughing softly with another passenger, looking lighter and freer than she had in months. That frightened Jordan more than anger ever could. She's not pretending, Kayla finally whispered. She's already accepted it. Near the middle of the flight, Jordan quietly walked toward the galley. Priya was organizing trays. Can we talk? He asked softly. She didn't stop working. I'm on duty. It'll only take a minute. She placed another tray into the cart before looking at him. Not with anger, but with quiet certainty. I hope you enjoy your vacation. Priya. A flight attendant from the opposite galley walked over. Everything okay? Priya smiled professionally. Yes. If you need anything during the flight, sir, simply press the call button. She walked away. Jordan stood frozen in the narrow aisle. He realized he wasn't losing an argument, he was losing his marriage. When he returned to his seat, Kayla looked at him. Well? She wouldn't talk. I figured. Kayla looked out the window. Women don't become that calm overnight. She made her decision the moment she saw us. I think you're already too late. Several hours later, the wheels touched the runway in Cancun. Jordan deliberately waited until almost everyone had left the plane. He wasn't ready to face Priya again, but eventually, there was no one left between them. She stood at the aircraft door. Perfect posture, warm smile. Jordan searched her face desperately for heartbreak or disappointment. He found nothing. As he stepped closer, Priya smiled politely. Thank you for flying with us. We hope you enjoy your stay. There were 1,000 things he wanted to say. I'm sorry, let me explain, but none of the words came out. He simply picked up his bag, walked off the aircraft, and disappeared into the bright Cancun sunshine. The resort was beautiful, but the vacation was a slow catastrophe. No missed calls, no texts, no voicemail from Priya. The silence became louder than any argument. On the third evening, Kayla finally asked, if Priya leaves you, what happens to us? Jordan stared at the candle flickering between them and realized he didn't have an answer. Kayla gave a faint, disappointed smile. I thought so. By the 5th day, the excitement was completely gone. As they watched the waves, Kayla quietly said, it feels like we're waiting for a verdict. The night before they flew home, Kayla packed her bags. I booked an earlier flight, she said with a tired smile. I think this story stopped being about us a long time ago. She walked over and hugged him. It wasn't romantic, it was goodbye. Jordan never saw her again. The next morning, he boarded his flight home alone, rehearsing apologies for 4 hours. By the time he landed in Atlanta, he had convinced himself there was still something left to save. He drove straight home. He reached his front door and stopped. An envelope had been taped neatly to the center of it, his name written in Priya's unmistakable handwriting. Inside were legal documents, petition for dissolution of marriage. He unlocked the apartment. The silence that greeted him was the kind that tells you someone has already moved on. The bookshelf had empty spaces. The framed photographs from their vacations were gone, leaving lighter rectangles on the walls. In the kitchen, her wedding ring rested neatly on the counter next to a folded note. Jordan opened it. Only 4 words, you should have gone to Houston. His knees gave way. He slid down against the kitchen cabinets and sat on the floor, crying. Not because he had been caught, but because he finally understood what he had thrown away. 3 months passed. Kayla had disappeared completely. Jordan buried himself in work, but it rarely helped. One rainy Thursday evening, Jordan sat in the back of a rideshare stuck in downtown Atlanta traffic. He stared absent-mindedly outside as the car stopped at a red light. He looked up, and suddenly, he forgot how to breathe. A massive digital billboard overlooked the intersection. Standing proudly across it was Priya, wearing a redesigned international cabin crew uniform with effortless confidence. She looked directly into the camera, calm, elegant, and untouchable. The billboard read, "Sky First. Experience the difference." She was the face of the airline's new international campaign. The light turned green, and the car began moving. The driver glanced into the rearview mirror. "You know her?" Jordan remained silent for a long moment. He thought about that Tuesday morning, the flight, the champagne, and the note on the counter. He hadn't lost Priya on that airplane, he had been losing her one small lie at a time. "Yeah," Jordan said quietly, looking back at the empty skyline. "I used to." He had boarded that flight believing he was escaping an ordinary life. Instead, it became the journey that set someone else free. While he spent 6 days chasing a fantasy, Priya quietly chose a future where she no longer needed him. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy the person who is betrayed. It destroys the person who believed they would never be caught. Jordan thought he was flying toward freedom. In the end, he only watched someone else arrive there first.